Hey guys, so right from the jump, one thing this episode and the anime in general has me appreciating that I never really did in the manga is just how much of an effective spy Drake really is. Because even though this is the point where the mask slipped off, he was exposed as the traitor among Kaido's forces, all that, we can still see even now in real time the kind of skill that Prince Drake has at being like a spy and informant, all that stuff that has gotten him this far, which is the ability of using situational awareness and just a few choice words and just and techniques in order to really just manipulate the situation and in order to really manipulate those circumstances and turn it into an advantage. The only when you really get down to it, the only reason like Drake's whole thing of trying to get Hawkins in order to turn against him, in order to turn against Kaido and all them, is because he was careless and just underestimated Kaido's intelligence network. But even after being exposed, he still looked at the situation calmly and decided what was the best course of action by, ironically, choosing the most explosive route of just taking out their grenade and just kind of tossing in the middle of the room and all that shit. Like that again, less than subtle for a spy, but hey, it just still worked. Of course, but let's also talk about Drake. But let's also talk about Hawkins for a minute here, because unlike Drake, who had masterfully played his role up to this point, and so naturally slipped into the character of being one of Kaido's best best and most loyal officers. Hawkins, I mean, it's always kind of hard to tell what the guy's thinking because he's so stone-faced and has just an unshakable demeanor. But little moments and little bits of dialogue within this episode really kind of showcase that Hawkins is more or less wholly loyal to Kaido, but not necessarily out of respect or anything, but more when you look underneath what Hawkins does, what he says, you can almost see that Hawkins is serving Kaido because he genuinely fears him. Like that from which day that Kaido fell from the sky, I think was the moment where Hawkins truly gave into his fear of the Yonko's power, and almost instinctively felt there was no even if he had weighed the options at the time, using his cards of what was the best chance of survival. I think even if he hadn't used his cards, I think instinctively Hawkins probably felt there was no other recourse other than to just pretty much join Kaido as one of his soldiers. And once again, it's little details in how Hawkins conducts himself and really illustrates this, and make his circumstances kind of weirdly tragic now, because up to this point he's been an obedient soldier because, again, in Hawkins' view, that's all he can afford to be. And it does paint a very interesting picture of Hawkins when you look at his character as a whole up to this point. And yeah, when we see Drake brought before Queen, to me that really showcases, to me at least, just how very typical typical in a lot of ways the behavior of Kaido's crew are, and just how like almost kind of how their actions as individuals are kind of very stereotypical of pirates when compared to because up to this point, the relationship between a lot of crews in One Piece, no matter whether they're antagonists or not, have been one of loyalty to each other and their captain. But with Kaido's crew, it's one where they have a loyalty to their captain, but whose actions in this episode show that what makes up the crew, the people themselves, that the individuals that make up the crew itself, aren't necessarily afraid to betray each other to get ahead. And when you look at how the crew of like the Beast Pirates, Animal Kingdom Pirates is structured, it's almost built on the foundations of fostering the behavior of betrayal, which shows just how much Kaido enables it, like and how much it's birthed through pretty much through Kaido's whole desire of just wanting to feel like what it's like to die. Like a lot of what Kaido believes, I think, fosters this sort of betrayal type of mentality within his crew, and I think he enables it because he hopes that one day his crew can pretty much kill him. I think it's very it does bring a weird little bit of insight into the crew dynamics. And yet, for as crazy as it sounds, it's that methodology combined with Kaido's strength that has drawn people to follow him. Whereas in contrast to Luffy's dynamic with the Straw Hats, it is one born out of genuine loyalty and just wanting to live free and all that shit. So yeah, it's interesting how these two dynamics are kind of portrayed in this episode. Getting back to Drake though, this episode, curiously enough, does really emphasize the very real possibility of Drake's death. And even though we haven't gotten to that point yet, there is a lot going on in the manga currently that definitely indicates we are reaching that point very soon. It's just a matter of when Oda's going to pull the trigger, I think, on him. With that being said, we get a pretty epic moment between the Straw Hats versus the Numbers, and debate on the use of flashback aside, I do love it when we get these moments with the Straw Hats, or in this case Luffy, where they draw upon their experience of previous encounters and incorporate it into how they confront a current threat. In this case, using their fight against Luffy, using his fight against Zoro's in order to take on the Numbers. Like the biggest difference being though is that they have gotten stronger and are more prepared to tackle a threat like that in a way that doesn't expend so much energy. And yeah, the amount of detail and budget they put into that single scene of Luffy and Drake simultaneously taking out one of the Numbers is one of those scenes that is so hype and so epic that in some ways it's almost kind of hilarious thinking about how much effort they threw at that one scene. Like, again, it's an epic scene, but because of the circumstances and because of how the Numbers in themselves are kind of, when you get down to it, I don't want to say fodder characters, but definitely they're easy target kind of characters that can just be taken, that are meant to showcase the character's strengths. So it's kind of when you really look at it from that angle, it's kind of hilarious thinking about how much effort the Toei threw at the art and animation with that one scene, and which makes it kind of epically hilarious in that sense. Like the more you think about it, and just the whole situation itself. And yeah, as a whole, this is an odd episode because honestly, it's probably the best one to have coming off of last week, because it actually got a lot accomplished, but it did feel weirdly paced in the beginning. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, frankly. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.